Okay, well, it doesn't matter about websites. It matters about getting the backup data from your payroll company. So ask Katie, send Katie an email, ask her to send you the tape
Hi,
presentation
everyone.
and the
Thank you so
script
much
so
for
that you're
joining.
gonna have
We'll ask everyone to please
okay?
mute their lines.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're on, please mute your lines, please. Thank you. Just some administrative rules here as we're going through the presentation. I'll ask everyone to just pose their questions via chat feature as we're going through the presentation. And we'll also pause at the end as well for question and answers as well. We will, if you have any questions or any concerns by then, if you'd like to also speak, you'll raise your hand and then we will allow you during that time to do so. We have the awesome pleasure of having GoDaddy present on best practices for virtual teaching. And I've seen this presentation before, and I cannot tell you how really impactful and timely it is at this time. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to AJ Teeters. AJ?
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. Welcome everybody to our session on best practices for virtual teaching. As you know, my name is AJ Teeters. I am a trainer, a master facilitator at GoDaddy, and I am super excited to be here with everybody today. Regardless of the circumstances, I think that this is an amazing topic to be able to talk about with everyone. And I just want to give you a little bit of background about myself. Really quick, I joined GoDaddy about 5 years ago. I joined the learning department about 4.5 years ago after that. I have a background in education and psychology, and this is a true passion of mine, not just educating, not just instruction, not just facilitation, but truly being there and helping others. It's a massive intrinsic value inside of me, and I am super excited to be here to be able to impart some of this to all of you who are able to attend today. So thank you for attending. Buckle up, we're gonna have a lot of fun, and you're gonna get a lot of really great information to help you succeed. But I do want to make a couple of notes. Number one, the content is going to be a little bit mixed. We do have a little bit of a mixed crowd. There's some organizations here, there's some entrepreneurs, some small business owners here. So the content is meant to be inclusive for everyone on this call. So please make sure that if you do have any questions or you do need any clarification, please pose them in the chat feature. That way I can jump on and answer those questions in the moment, or we can kind of parking lot those and answer them in the Q&A towards the end. So just be aware of all of that, but please do not hesitate to pose a question in the chat if I want to get to it right then and there, because I think it's important for everybody. I definitely will. And that way we can kind of continue the momentum throughout the entire presentation. Also, just so you guys know, there are some features in chat. There's going to be a poll question that comes up as well, so be prepared for that. But without further ado, let's get started with the presentation. So first and foremost, let's talk about some very quick tips for small business owners and organizations that you might want to think about adjusting during this time and during this time that we're actually all kind of experiencing right now. So number one, we always want to be safe. We want to make sure that you are consistently updating your employees and your customers on the developments and the regulations that are being handed down by the government, by CDC, and by any other organization that's trying to keep us safe, healthy, and protected. Something that you're going to see throughout the tips and throughout this presentation is going to be a lot of talks about communication and how important that is to not only your employees, your business, and your customers, but also the importance of consistency of communication, so there's no confusion and there's nothing that's affecting the business or your entrepreneurial ventures that you're getting involved in during this time. Number two, be flexible. Postpone events, Postpone services, postpone appointments. Everyone is kind of under the same, or is on the same playing field right now in an understanding mindset. So please make sure that you're flexible with this. If you can't make it happen, everyone is very understanding at this time, but also be flexible with platforms for people to communicate with you. If you are going to postpone an event or services or products or appointments, let your customers know, let your employees know in a consistent way, but also give them a platform to speak back and provide feedback to you about that flexibility so you can continue to adjust and be flexible in this time. Something that always comes to mind with me is the consistency and the timing of communication. If at all possible, communicate as much as you can and as soon as you can. So if you know something's going to be postponed or something's going to change, at least give it about a week out, and then a couple of days prior, send out another communication, and then the day of, provide that communication again. That way there's no confusion in what that message is and what that flexibility that you're trying to communicate is. Also, make sure that you guys are looking at different refunds. Create a refund policy or make some additions or amendments to your refund policy, and make sure that you move quickly with that, because we don't want any confusion or any backlash on your businesses, especially your brand and your reputation happening during this time. I know that through a lot of different things that I've actually ordered online or done business with, they have a renewed refund policy that they know about. And most of the time, it's not anything big. It's just about the timing of the situation. So they're letting a lot of their customers know, specifically me. I know that I saw that there was a giant sale going on at American Eagle right now. There's like 75% off of clearance. And I was like, I'm going to jump on that. And I ordered a couple of things, and they let me know that one, my delivery is most likely going to be postponed, and two, that they, in the email they sent me, they actually told me that their refund policy had changed. So I wanted to review that. And basically they let me know in the refund policy that there's no limit during this time on when I can actually refund something. So there's no time frame. Because if I wanted to refund it in the store, if I wanted to bring it back and exchange it or refund it, right now, they're allowing people to hold on to those goods until the stores reopen. Or if I wanted to mail it back, just to let me know that there's most likely an expected longer time until I see that refund process. So just a little tip about refunds: make sure you're getting those policies and those procedures updated and communicated out to your customers. Tip number 4, communicate. Update your website. Update your social media pages. Email marketing campaigns that can be dripped out and sent out to your customers and your clients as much as you possibly can. Any changes you're making during this time should and need to be communicated to help you continue to build and maintain the customer base and the clients that you currently have. Get creative. This is probably the number one thing that I can't really dive into a whole lot, because this is all dependent on your businesses and your clients and your customers and how you choose to adapt to the circumstances and the times that we're living in now. I would say take some time to really think about the way that your customers, your clients, your businesses communicate and interact with your customers. That way you can come up with a game plan to put in place. The worst thing that we can possibly do right now is be reactive. We want to be as proactive as we possibly can now that we know the times that we're in. And then last but not least, if you're not online, let's get online. Let's make sure that you have the tools, the resources, the know-how, and the insight to be able to start offering online shopping and virtual solutions for your customers and your clients. Not everybody is an e-commerce store. Not everybody has products that they can sell online. Some of us out there are consultants. Some of us out there are face-to-face business types of people and businesses. And we want to make sure that we're completely trying to encompass what that looks like in an online and in a virtual way. So with all of those, we're going to get into some tips about running a business, and then we're going to get into some tips about how to get your business to grow during this time as well. But before I move on, are there any questions? Please pose them in the chat about these tips specifically before we move on. I'll give you about 20, 30 seconds, and then I'll just transition through. All right, it looks like everybody's on the same page. Great. Next slide. What we're going to be looking at is basically a picture of, I think, what everyone's world is kind of representing right now. So if you look at this picture, this person is video chatting in a room, and you can see basically the chaos all around her. The pink light, as opposed to the blue shading, is really what is visible to the person she's actually chatting with. So I want you to take a second and look at this and think about this in relation to where we're currently at, or you specifically are currently at, and what you notice about this. The main focus about this slide is that to truly understand the state that we're in with virtual instruction, with best practices for teaching online, with getting your business online, is owning your space. What perception do you want the person on the other end of the online connection to have? Now, I'm not saying that she's right or she's wrong in this situation. I'm not saying that we want to pull any type of guise over our customers or our clients' faces, but we do need to understand that what we're actually producing, what we're showing visually, needs to be our best foot forward. So in this time, we also need to understand that there's a lot of chaos around us, but we can't let that affect our businesses. We can't let that affect our customers. We can't let that affect our clients. So what we want to do is we want to own that space. We want everyone to know what that looks like, and we want to try our best to put our brand forward before anything else. If I want to give you guys a little bit of a peek behind the curtain for me, as you can see, I have a GoDaddy virtual background behind me. I was not prepared whatsoever to be moved to work from home based with my family and the living environment that I'm in right now. I have four beautiful children. My wife is at home right now too. She's an art teacher. And so we're all kind of in this same space. And because of where we're at, I have to make sure that I kind of have a makeshift office. So let me show you guys technically what my chaos looks like behind me. And everybody usually gets a kick out of this, but this is my chaos right now. This is my kids' playroom, basically, is what I had to convert into my online office. It's very colorful. If you're joining very, very early in the morning, it usually wakes people up without a cup of coffee. But you can see that we're all kind of living in this space. And it becomes, thank you, Michelle, it is very, very colorful. And we all kind of have to adapt. So what are those measures that you're putting into your life to make sure that you're giving the best, most professional look while you're on screen, but you're also being very authentic to who you are? Sometimes I enter meetings like this just to remind people, hey, this is life right now, and that's okay. And other times when we want to be a little bit more professional, we can kind of show that side of ourselves as well. Always remember that we are not the only ones that are experiencing this, and life tends to happen. Right now, my dog's barking in the background. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but that's okay, because what we want to do is we want to acknowledge the chaos, but also be as professional in that acknowledgement as we possibly can. So that was a little peek behind the curtains of my life. I hope everyone's doing just as well, or at least they have a little bit better working spaces than I do sometimes. But I do love the fact that I'm in here because my kids are doing school as well, and sometimes during the day they'll be in this room working on homework or a project or an assignment, and I can actually lean over and help them. Some stuff that I wasn't able to do when I was actually in the office. So always looking at the bright side, the silver lining, but also when need be to be professional and limit those distractions as much as possible. So with that, let's look at what we can do when we're conducting virtual workshops or virtual teaching sessions for our clients, our customers, our entrepreneurs, and our business owners that we're partnering with. So there's three main areas that we want to focus on during this time: staying engaged, removing distractions, and then using your tech appropriately and understanding it. So the first thing that we're going to focus on is staying engaged. Make sure, as you noticed when I jumped in here, I had my webcam on. It was ready, it was set. I actually tested it before I came into the meeting to make sure that everything was working properly. But webcams help in two reasons. Number one, it really helps keep folks accountable. It makes sure that you can see their reactions, that you can see that they're engaged, that you can see that they're actually paying attention to the topics at hand. But two, it also makes things very personal. And that's something that we don't want to lose during this time, is being able to see people face to face, have those interactions. Far be it, it is virtual, but it still gives us that personal touch that we can have during our meetings. That way we can all be on the same page, and you can start to read that body language to make sure that engagement is where it needs to be. Be ready to make sure that people know how to come off of mute. It is a little bit of a virtual faux pas to start talking without being on mute, but it happens to the best of us. So don't let it shake you. But there's always a little bit of a coaching, if need be, to let someone know very politely, hey, you're still on mute, come off of mute if you do have something important to say, and set the expectations in the beginning of how you, the leader, the host of the meeting, wants people to be engaged. Are they raising their hands? Are they going to be using the chat? Are they going to be asking, should they be asking questions throughout, or should they be holding those questions until the end? That way, it's not going to be too distracting throughout the time that you're actually conducting those meetings. Try to remove distractions completely if you can. Avoid answering emails while you're on a video chat, because the webcam should hopefully be able to keep people accountable for that. Answering emails, making sure that you're not browsing on your phone or answering any texts, or next thing you know, posting something on TikTok. We don't want that to happen. Shopping on Amazon. I know that the delivery dates have been delayed, but make sure that we are staying engaged and minimizing those distractions that are peripheral from around us. And then also, engagement is really important in a virtual environment by scheduling breaks and letting people know what those breaks are. The rule of thumb usually is for about an hour's worth of teaching, you want to give people about 15 minutes worth of a break, just mentally, to make sure that they can get up, walk around, go grab a drink of water or something else. And then every 2 to 3 hours of content, you usually want to give people about 45 minutes of a break. Now, 45 minutes of a break doesn't mean that after 2 hours you give them 45 minutes off. Basically, when you're thinking about a longer piece of content for engagement purposes, you want to break up what the engagement pieces are. So if this was 2 to 3 hours worth of content that I would be presenting, we would be using polls a lot more. We would be in different breakout rooms. We'd be using the chat. I would have you be raising your hand to make sure that you're staying engaged. It's not a 45-minute break completely where they can go take a nap or do something else. It's actually just breaks of you talking and using the different functionality you have to keep the people engaged, that the type of platform that you're using. Remove distractions. We want to make sure that there isn't anything that's distracting you or distracting others. So set the expectations that the attendees that you're having to come into your meetings, close any other apps and any other communication tools on their computers and on their systems. Walk people through, remind people to set themselves as away. You could also have auto replies set up on their email, depending on how long the actual training or the session will be. Setting up a distraction-free room is really important. I have a sign that I hang up outside of the playroom door that says on air, to make sure that my kids and my wife also know that I'm currently facilitating and presenting, so they don't randomly walk in. It still happens. I have a 6-year-old. He does love to come and give me hugs every now and again. But it tries to minimize that as much as possible. And then we have a rule going on at GoDaddy right now that there's no apologies necessary when stuff happens. We all understand that we're all trying to work from home, that we're all trying to make this shift. People are homeschooling their kids. They're taking care of their pets. There's a lot of uncertainty going on in the world, and we're all trying to understand what that looks like. So set the expectation with your clients, with your customers, with your employees, with the businesses you're trying to help, that there's no need to apologize. There's no need to feel embarrassed. There's no need for them to feel like they have to remove every single distraction from their lives, because life happens. And if we tried to look for perfectionism in everything, we would miss all of the amazing parts of life that are happening around us. So we just want to make sure that when we say remove those distractions, remove them the best you can, but also don't be afraid to acknowledge when stuff happens. It makes everything a little bit lighter, a little bit more personal when we can acknowledge those distractions in our lives. because everyone's experiencing them currently. And then use your tech. So what I want to do really quick is I actually want to open up a poll, and the poll question is going to show up on your screens, and it's going to ask, what type of platform are you currently using? So I'm going to give it a second while we open up that poll. And then I have a couple of questions in the chat. There's the poll. So feel free to answer that once you see it. And then Rosalind asked, what are your suggestions for facilitating training for folks who are very inexperienced or uncomfortable with tech? Rosalind, I will tell you, I just got done with a 2-week onboarding new hire class with GoDaddy. And I had probably about 3 or 4 people that were very inexperienced and very uncomfortable with tech. I know that sounds weird because they were hired into GoDaddy, but they are amazing people. It's just they don't have the same experience that I do or that we do with using these type of tools. So what I did, what I made sure that I did is before the meeting, before the training even started, I sent out an email to them outlining everything that they may need to know about troubleshooting. I created some job aids with visual aids for them. And then what I would do is I would always set the expectation that if they were uncomfortable, they could reach out to me. We could have a meeting before or after the training, depending on how long your training is, to make sure that they feel comfortable and they can ask those questions not surrounded by a bunch of other people, to make them feel a little bit more safe. If that makes sense. I know it's not always the best, but sometimes it does help in that way. And then Christopher wanted to know, when there is minimal engagement with the group, what are some strategies to get them to use the chat function? So what I like to do is I like to just kind of have icebreakers actually on the back end. So I like to pose random questions to the group if I see that engagement isn't there. Something that's not related to the material or the content you're presenting. So what I like to do, what I like to start off the day with is setting the expectations to be in chat and to make sure that they're engaging with each other. And then if I'm not getting a lot of engagement, I'll pause it, because normally if you're not getting a lot of engagement, it means that they're getting overloaded with content. Their minds are just going in different directions. And so what I would always do is I would pose an icebreaker question to get the communication started again. So you could always do something as simple as, what do you prefer, cake or pie? And then you can start a discussion about that. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what was the first full CD that you ever bought with your own money? And then you actually get this wonderful response from people who are a lot younger that say, I've never even bought a CD before in my life. And then that's another fun discussion. So if you start to see those engagement pieces break down, have something in your back pocket to ramp up the engagement that's not related to the content. And then allow yourself to have a 5 to 10 minute discussion with the group about that off-topic subject, and then get them back into play with the engagement in the content that you're actually teaching. Gives them a little mental break, and it allows them to refocus back with engagement. So it looks like a lot of people are using Zoom. About 88% of us, some of us are using Skype, GoToMeetings, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, and then about 12% are others. Currently, a couple of people don't use a conferencing system at all. So thank you for that. I think everyone's actually answered the poll, give or take. So we're going to end that poll really quick, and then we can always relaunch it, but it looks like most people are actually going to be utilizing Zoom. So we're utilizing Zoom now. We also, in the learning department, we also utilize Adobe Connect. It's a great learning tool. But I do notice some of you guys are using Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts, which are awesome tools as well. The reason I wanted to start this poll with you now, though, is simply because I want you to understand why it's so important to use your tech and use it appropriately, and also understand what that means. So using your tech, number one, we want to make sure that your bandwidth is open. So there's a couple of things that goes into that. Number one, test your connection. If you've never tested your connection before, what we want to make sure is you understand how to do that. There's great ways to do it. You can contact your internet service provider, and they can test your connection for you. They can tell you what your upload and download speeds are. There are some online websites that you can also run. I like speedtest.net. It's a pretty neutral website that gives you a really good reading of what that looks like. But you also want to make sure that you're trying to minimize as many people on your network when you're running these conferences and these sessions as possible. And try not to be on Wi-Fi. If you can hardwire connect your computer while you're actually running these meetings, it's going to create a lot smoother experience. Make sure that you can tech the technical issues. You're not going to know what the technical issues are, so setting the expectation that there could be some technical issues is always reassuring to the people who are joining your sessions. If you need to also, if you have someone else that you're working with or you have a partner that you can reach out to, have them produce what's actually happening. That way you can focus on the facilitation and they can focus on the tech, or they can run the polls, or they can make sure that they're monitoring the chat for you, so you're not being distracted and you're not being pulled in a million different directions. Having someone produce for you is a very great way of staying on task, and it's a great way of making sure that you are staying engaged with the group and that any questions can be answered or any technical problems can actually be troubleshooted on the back end, as opposed to taking time away from what's important, which is the content you're trying to deliver. My biggest suggestion when it comes to using your tech is not actually one of these 3 bullet points. It's actually for those of you using Zoom and Skype and GoToMeetings and Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts and anything else that you're planning on using, is get in there and use it. If you can schedule some demonstrations, some demo sessions with your team or with your employees, even some very loyal customers, to let them know, like, I really want to get this this tech working. I want to get this system working for the company and for you as my customers and you as my employees, but I don't feel super comfortable yet. Would you mind joining a demo session so I can make sure that I get in there and I get my hands dirty and I see how it works and the intricacies and the ins and outs of everything? A lot of companies now, because these conferencing systems are being used a lot more than they have in the past, they have how-to videos. They have a lot of step-by-step walkthroughs on their actual website. So go to zoom.us, go to Microsoft, go to GoToMeetings, go to Google, and look up those different help articles, look up those videos. YouTube is a great resource as well, because there's a lot of people using these systems now that are posting this information to make it easier for you. So spend some time, dedicate some time to understand how to use your tech effectively, and then cater that to who you're actually working with. So thank you guys for taking that poll question. Very, very enlightening. I would highly recommend getting your hands dirty with all of these different conferencing tools. It's going to only make you a better instructor, facilitator, employer, and partner for your customers, your businesses, and your clients. So with that, let's also look at some general tips while you're actually running these sessions. So some tips that you want to take away is we want to make sure that you're having a conversation. Ask questions. Make sure that your participants are engaging throughout the session. If you ever want to, call on folks specifically to give their 2 cents and give their opinions and give their perspectives. The number one thing that will dominate a session that's being run virtually is if there's no breaks to allow for people to be in the chat, to ask questions, to make sure that they're being heard, so we can make sure that we're all on the same page throughout the entire time that we're running the session. Bobby wanted to know if we didn't display the poll results, do you not recommend displaying them? So it depends on the poll. It depends on what you're looking for, and it depends on what type of engagement that you want. So this poll specifically was for me as a facilitator to kind of understand where you were at as attendees. But the poll function can be used as an engagement tool. So if I wanted to create another poll and ask you, what's your favorite movie genre, and I had all the movie genres out there, I could broadcast those results to start a conversation and start engagement with you. This was more of just a poll that I used for myself to make sure that I understood where everybody was with their technology. But understanding how to use the poll and then understanding when to broadcast those results, completely up to you. I do not recommend one way or the other. It all really depends on how you see fit to use that poll. But engagement is really what you're looking for with that, making sure that people are paying attention and making sure that people are actually answering the questions that you're asking. Use breakouts, polls, and whiteboards. There's a lot of different functionality that these platforms have. The more that you use them, the more you're going to understand what they do. But being able to use breakout rooms to have people partner up and have small group discussions or talks is really big when it comes to these virtual sessions. Having those polls available, like Bobby was asking about, for engagement, either broadcast them or not, is really important too, because we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And sometimes virtually, we might not be able to see expressions, we might not be able to see everyone in the room. So using that poll functionality can really give us a better understanding. And then whiteboards too is a great way to collaborate in real time with everybody in the meeting, or you can set up whiteboards in the breakout rooms to make sure that everyone's staying on task. So we want to make sure that we're using as many of the functionalities that we can, but we're using them effectively. We don't need to use a hammer for everything. So we want to make sure that we're using the right tools for the right reasons for the engagement pieces we're looking for. Let's see, someone just asked, how do you keep clients who are joining via phone call engaged? It's difficult to get a sense of who is actually using their computers or the phone app to view slides and who is just calling in. Absolutely agree. That's not anything that necessarily you as a facilitator can control, how someone's actually getting into your conferences. So the engagement piece does have to fall a little bit on us, and it does have to fall, actually the majority of it on the person who's actually joining the session. My biggest suggestion about how people are engaging and how people are actually conferencing themselves and joining the sessions is set the expectation from the beginning. If they can join via computer, let them know that that's a better experience for themselves. But if they are joining via phone and they can't see the slides and they can't see what's going on, recording the sessions is very, very important. And then letting those people know that don't have the capability to join via computer, that you'll be sending out the recording to them as an attendee so they can catch up on what was actually talked about. So the engagement piece, more than anything, is work with what you can. Understand that we're in circumstances now where not everybody can be as engaged as others, but set the expectation with them that engagement is going to be key, and you're going to want them to follow up with you or follow up with this presentation through the recording that you'll send out either later that day or the next day. But make sure that you're consistent with that and you actually do that. Address how questions are going to be answered. Make sure that expectations, like I just said, are set in the beginning. Make sure that people understand upfront how questions will be answered so that your workshop runs smoothly. You don't want someone asking a question and then feeling like they're being ignored, which can easily happen in a virtual environment. What I like to do is I like to keep a Post-it note on my computer, and any questions that are posed that I don't get a chance to answer or I think I need to answer later, I'll just type them out really quick while I'm facilitating so I can always get back to them. And another big tip about answering questions, if you're going to be doing it later, is write down the person who asked the question. That way you can address them personally and make sure that they feel validated in that. So customers, clients, business owners, all of that, it really goes into you making sure that you're addressing them personally and you're making sure that they know that you've heard their question. And then last but not least, make it fun. Use video, make sure you're on screen. Memes, jokes, whatever your personality is, make sure that shines through the meetings. The last class that I did, I was helping halfway facilitate and halfway produce it so I could get to understand Adobe Connect. During my breaks, I would create memes through a meme generator, and I would post those in the chat to get people involved and get people laughing and make sure that they were staying engaged. Notice that I'm wearing a t-shirt today. I'm actually wearing a t-shirt. It says, "Earn your booze." I know it's a little faux pas, but the reason I'm wearing this is because it's actually a t-shirt that was made by a brewery local here in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's the Scottsdale Beer Company, and I am a huge, huge supporter of local small businesses. More so this one than anyone else because my brother-in-law is actually the chef of the brewery there. So I wanted to wear this specifically for this time. I was very cognizant because I wanted to support a local business while I was on a call with all of you who are supporting small businesses, who are small businesses, and who need this support. So make it fun and be aware of what message that you're sending out, because it's only going to make the engagement, it's only going to make the session that much better if we can really treat this like an actual face-to-face meeting type of conference or type of session. So make it fun as best as you possibly can. Keep everybody engaged. Keep your employees engaged. Keep your business owners engaged. Keep your customers and your clients engaged. Don't change who you are just because you're virtual. Who you are is what makes you great. Who you are is what makes you stand out. It's why your businesses thrive. It's why you're doing so well. It's what got you to where you are today. Don't change that. Keep the fun, keep the excitement. I know that the times are weird and they're different, but that doesn't mean that you still can't be yourselves. So always make it fun. Something for our business owners that I want to go over is, how do you grow your business in this time? How do you make sure that you as a business owner are staying engaged with your customers, and that you're not staying stagnant, you're not staying static where you are, but two, you're not backsliding either, that you're not losing customers, that you're maintaining and you're growing your business. So while things are really uncertain and they're chaotic right now, there are still some opportunities for you to grow your business. Number one, offer virtual courses and consultations for your customers. There's preferences to have these types of sessions in person. You can still move forward even if it's not in person. As an example, like the process of getting like custom closets or general contracting done. Like the company can no longer do these installs. They can no longer come out to the house. They can't take the measurements the same. But instead of shutting down service and pushing those dates out, some of them have virtual options where we all understand that smartphones are available, FaceTime is available. Those general contractors, those closet builders, they can actually have virtual meetings that give virtual quotes based off of what it looks like. And that way they're setting up business for the future. Or they could also set up business and let the family know, we're going to be in your house from this time to do the build. Please make sure that you are, that we're keeping the social distancing 6 feet. If you wanted to like go out for a drive or do something proactive outside, and then by the time we're done, we'll notify you, you can come back and see your beautiful brand new closets. So make sure that they're still able to create mock-ups and show what they could do in the space. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could do based off of consultations and courses that are virtual, especially if that was your primary focus as a business owner. You could also live stream events, host virtual conferences. I'm sure we're all seeing folks do this right now. It's a great way to engage and connect with customers and peers to make sure that you are still on their top of mind for awareness. Making sure that you are looking at more relaxed options, possibly as an example, like office hours or webinars that can be drop-ins. I know just having folks connect with one another for 30 minutes or 15 minutes can be a huge difference for your customers and your clients. At GoDaddy right now, we actually are offering a 24/7 open Zoom room where employees can sign up to teach whatever they want, at whatever they want. They can teach how to build cabinets. They can teach how to bake bread. They can teach how to paint a picture. They can teach how to build a website. It really depends on what they want to do. And they can sign up for these 30-minute slots and sessions to be able to actually engage with the employees that they have, that GoDaddy has, to be able to continue to give back and create that sense of community. I've seen yoga classes, meditation sessions, recipe swaps that have happened. It's really cool. It's an open way for employees to drop in from anywhere at any time, meet someone new, and just take a couple of minutes to be able to kind of break out of the monotony that we're all kind of in from work from home. This has been a really great way to keep employees engaged and spirits up. You can do this with your customers, you can do this with your clients, you can do this with your employees, you can do this with your business owners. It's a really great way to have an open time slot for anybody to drop in. It's very relaxed for you, because if you're in Zoom, you get the little ding and you know someone's available. Chat with them, meet with them, and engage with them. And then once they're ready to leave, they can be on their way and you can go on to the next, or you can have a group session. It really kind of depends on what you're looking for. And then something else that we can think about is having a coffee chat. And this came out of one of our one of GoDaddy's customers. It's, again, something that's very casual, no agenda, to connect with them, to connect with employees, customers. I'm sorry, there's no agenda. It was just to connect with employees, customers, friends, family. And this was a coffee shop, and this was one of our customers came up with this idea because she was a coffee shop owner. It was Elizabeth Cadeo. She owns Coffee Unimatic, and she noticed that because of the social distancing and what was happening with COVID-19, that she missed the interactions that she was having with customers and clients and friends that would come to her coffee shop. She loved having coffee talks, and she was no longer having those. So what she did is she saw a need to communicate with her customers and her community during this time. So she started hosting virtual, and she hashtagged it, brave conversations over coffee, to help her customers make sense of things that were going on right now. It wasn't her coffee, it was just a cup of coffee, but it kept her on top of mind. She started hosting these virtual workshops and these virtual sessions to help people be able to kind of like have a cathartic time that they would normally have at a coffee shop. She was able to provide comfort in this time over a cup of coffee. And because she had a loyal customer base, she was keeping on their top of mind. She was able to showcase her coffee products. She was able to showcase her gift baskets and equipment and point people to her online store so she could still do business. So she used it as a platform to let people know they may not have even known that she was still able to sell her coffee, or that she went online to sell her coffee, her gift baskets, and her equipment. But because of those talks that she organized, she was able to continue to produce a marketing campaign for herself centered around the familiarity of sitting in a coffee shop and having those deep conversations with your friends over a cup of coffee. So it really helped her in that way. Sharing stories of how customers are adapting to the new normal. It's what we love to do here at GoDaddy. It's what we really want to do for our customers and for you that we're partnering with, to come up with these great ideas. So if you come up with these ideas, share them, because it's only going to make a better, more well-rounded world for our businesses and our small businesses and our entrepreneurs to be able to make sure that they are continuing to thrive and grow in this uncertain time. With that, that is my entire presentation. One, thank you so much for joining with me. Thank you for having me. I know that your time is extremely valuable. I hope beyond infinite amounts that there was something in this that stuck out to you that you're able to use, that you're able to continue to build off of as a small business owner, as a partner of a small business owner during this time, with your customers, with your clients. If nothing else, how to have fun with your family and just relax during this time, because we're all going through the same things. But if nothing else, I really hope that you are strengthening yourselves through this to make sure that the resolve is still there, that you're still continuing and you're still persevering through this time, because I'm a huge, huge support of small businesses, and I applaud the efforts that all of you are going through during this time. So with that, I am going to open up the Q&A session. I'm going to be here for the remaining time. If I can answer any questions, I will. But if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them into the chat. Or if anybody wants to raise their hand and come off of mute, that would be awesome as well. Looks like questions in the chat, preferably. And yes, as a note too, if you're not paying attention to the chat, let me throw it out there. We are recording this, and we're going to be sharing this recording with all of you who are in attendance today if you do need any additional tips or you want to rewatch it. Jen, what is a good way to use the whiteboard feature that you use or that you have seen used? So the whiteboard is, it can be kind of chaotic, just so you know, because anyone can use it at the same time. You basically grant access and everybody can use it. So what I like to do is I like to use it for like stream of conscious activities. So I like to pose a question like, if I was to pose a question to the group and have a whiteboard activity, I would say, what's one idea or one takeaway that's going to impact you the most that you learned from this. And I would open up the whiteboard, and there's drawing tools, there's highlighting tools, there's text tools, there's a lot of things like that. And basically what I would tell them is type out whatever you think is the biggest takeaway. And then you just get this giant board of all of these great ideas that then you can go back to and kind of assimilate and talk about. Another thing that I like to do on whiteboards is you can share a document on a whiteboard. So usually what I like to do is I will have a document to share about like virtual training expectations. What do you as learners want to get out of this training? And then I'll have it numbered like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'll have anyone in the training session raise their hand to present an expectation. When they present the expectation, I'll tell them, okay, cool. Now I want you to go to the whiteboard and I want you to type it out and put it under number 1. And then who has another one? Here's number 2, and then here's number 3, and then here's number 4. So it's a great visual way to have that happen. Or you could always have whiteboards. Another thing that I like to do with whiteboards is have them in breakout rooms for collaboration, because it allows everyone to work on the same, in the same area at the same time. That way, no one's being lost, no one's not getting their voice heard. But whiteboards, I will say, the number 1 tip I have with whiteboards is setting expectations first, to let them know what you're looking for so they don't get crazy and start posting emojis or something else all over the place, or drawing mustaches on things. So I say all these things because it's happened to me. So you learn from your own failures. But yes, that's something that I would definitely suggest. I saw another one. Let's see. Zoom, distinguish using meeting option versus webinar option. Sabine, I don't actually, to tell you the truth, meeting versus webinar, I would have to do a little bit more research on. I would reach out to Zoom's website specifically. I don't know that one off the top of my head. We haven't run a lot of webinars through Zoom. It's usually our conferencing tool. We're running our webinars in our classrooms out of Adobe Connect. So I apologize for not knowing that one off the top of my head. Best practices for surveying. So surveying and polls. Best practices is knowing the type of survey you want to use. I know a couple of different programs and platforms have different options for surveys and polls. So if you're talking about surveying at the end, actually, who asked that? Let's see. G. Risley's? I don't know. It looks like a username. Whoever asked the surveying question, I apologize, good try. I apologize. Live in the moment, accept your failures, own your outcomes. By survey, do you mean at the end or do you mean during the actual webinar? At the end. So I am 100% huge proponent for surveying after every single webinar that you give or every single session that you give. It depends on what you're looking for, but you should be using the survey. You should be using the same survey for every single webinar until you change it and make it different. That way you have a really good data benchmark to be able to go off of. And feedback is essential. So make sure that you're taking that feedback, you're being constructive with that feedback. But yes, I 100% would always send out a survey at the end. That way you know what to reflect on, what went well, what you can improve on, and what your employees, your customers, your partners are going to be taking away. That way you can be more focused the next time, and then the next time, and the next time, and the next time. You can continue to iterate. And by doing that, you'll have the best product by a couple of surveys down. Fear that our clients might not answer towards the end of the webinar if we send after the webinar. Okay, you can. There's nothing wrong with sending it out before it ends. So if you wanted to denote 10 to 15 minutes right at the end of the webinar before they're done, let them know that you're going to be emailing them the survey or sending the link to them or posting the link in the chat. That way you can ensure engagement. So if you don't want to do it after it's done, my other recommendation would be set aside about 10 to 15 minutes at the end, and a little bit early, or make sure that that time is baked into the facilitation or the webinar. That way you can make sure that that engagement is there. Absolutely, absolutely. Cool. Any other questions? I'm scrolling back up through the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. Is there an average length of time for a webinar that is optimal? So Keith, there's not necessarily an optimal amount of time. What you want to look at is for how much time your webinar is going to run. So you want to have a good idea of how long this time period is going to be. One, for you. Two, for your customers, your partners, your clients, because you want to be respectful of their time. You want to give them accurate time frames. But three, it all goes into the cognitive mindset, like how much information they're able to obtain without having to take a break. So it's not necessarily the optimal amount of time for the length, it's the optimal amount of time based off of how many breaks you need to give them mentally. So every hour you want to give them about 15 minutes. Every 2 to 3 hours, you want to give them about 45. And I said that before, but I want to reiterate what that basically means. 15 minutes in a break is a 15-minute break from you actually talking. So you want to break it up somewhere in that hour. You want to give them a poll question to answer, a couple of different poll questions. You want to give them a whiteboard activity. You want to give them maybe a breakout room or something else like that. And then the other side of that, the 2 to 3 hours, the 45 minutes, you want to give them those type of facilitation breaks. It's their activity breaks. They're not actual like go off and get a cup of coffee breaks. But also be cognizant that people do need to stand up. They need to be disengaged. They may need to answer something on their phone or answer some emails. So you want to bake in those breaks periodically. Most adult learners, most people who may be your customers, your clients who are adults, need a mental break about every 10 to 12 minutes. And I'm not saying like stop doing what you're doing, but give them that activity, pose a new question, have an icebreaker ready that you can pose in the chat. That way you can make sure that it's all there and that their minds can kind of continue to reset. Give them a 5-minute break to answer emails, have them come back, get a cup of coffee, have an activity prepared, and then go back into your facilitation. Yep, absolutely, Keith, for sure. I'm glad you guys already have breaks put in. Let's see, is there an average amount of time? That was Keith, probably just need to practice this, but any tips for demos? I need to angle props to the camera. There's honestly, the tips that I can give you for demos is much the same tips that I was giving you before. Set expectations. Let people know before the demo starts what you're planning on working on so they don't join the demo and give you feedback that you're not looking for. So always preface what the demo is going to be focused on. One of the demos that I'm planning to do right now is for a sales training that we're doing internally for GoDaddy. And I am setting up the demo to test the breakout room functionality in Adobe Connect. So I'm not looking for feedback on my facilitation. I'm not looking for feedback on content. I want the group that I have demoing to focus on how did the functionality work for the breakout rooms. So if you're looking at cameras, or if you're looking at angle props and stuff like that, make sure that you set the expectation for the demo, that that's what you really want the feedback for, so people aren't focusing on things you're not looking for criticisms of. Hopefully that makes sense. Awesome, perfect. It's all about, like, surprisingly, everybody, it's all about setting expectations properly when you're virtual. It's a lot easier to do that in person, but you want to make sure that you give those people those expectations. And not gonna lie, as you guys transition out of this time, hopefully you carry that with you in your communication, because expectations are really important to let people know what's going on. It saves you a lot of time, it saves you a lot of frustration, so continue building off of that for sure. Cool. Anything else in the chat? This is like the most fun part of this entire thing for me. I gotta take a drink really quick because my mouth's getting dry. Cool. It looks like everybody's pretty good. You are welcome, Jen. Thank you again, everybody. I think this is probably a really good time to give you a second to breathe. I know that I've been talking for a little while, but I hope that you've all gotten something out of this. It is my absolute pleasure to be able to partner with GoDaddy and with AEO to be able to present this information to all of you. I look forward to the future. if we need to be in this situation for any longer, I really hope that I'm continuing this partnership and that I'm being looked toward, because I really, really enjoy supporting all of you during this time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that if you have any other questions, you continue to reach out to us. So back to my host, and thank you.
Thank you, AJ. That was a really content-rich presentation, and you could see from the myriad of questions that we've gotten. Thank you, everyone. We know that your time is precious during this time. Join us again when we'll have more webinars for GoDaddy. We'll definitely alert you. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great afternoon. Thank you, AJ.